Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is Tuesday, August 2nd. Today is Thursday, August 2nd, 2018. And tonight's topic is what happened to gold mining production in the second quarter. Some surprising information about gold mining production, gold supply and demand for the first half of the year and the second quarter. Now, before we get to that, let's take a look at the markets. So the gold market fell again today. It opened at 1219, went all the way down to about 1206. It is now threatening to go below 1200, and currently it's at $1,200 and $1,207.90. The silver market opened at 1545, fell all the way down to 1526, and currently it's at 1528. So not very good for the gold and silver markets lately. Similar story over at the cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is still holding above 7,500. It's at 7,527. It's down less than 1%. Bitcoin Cash is down nearly 5% at 729. Ethereum hanging on to 400 at 410, down about 2.5%. And Litecoin hanging above 75 at 76.24, down about 2%. Last night we talked about the U.S. Mint sales. We mentioned that the U.S. Mint sales were up for gold, but not really for silver. We had very good numbers for the American Silver Eagles and very good numbers for the American Gold Buffaloes. And if you don't know, the next day after we hold our live streams, I post the charts that we talked about during the live stream. Just posted a link to last night's live stream backup material. So if you click on that link, you'll be taken to the Smaulgld website and you can see the charts. I used to prepare those charts each and every month. And when the sales pretty much dried up, I stopped reporting that the U.S. Mint sold 1,000 Gold Eagles in a month. It just wasn't worth the time. But I've kept the charts and you can see them there. And if you're interested in charts, it's a good way to stay current, and they're easier to see on the website anyway. So your link is right there in the chat box. Also today, I didn't release them because the Central Bank of Kazakhstan is one that releases them, but I picked them up and I reported on them, and they added gold to their reserves for the 69th month in a row, and that's a record right now among central banks adding gold to the reserves. We're going to talk about Kazakhstan and a few other central banks tomorrow, and there'll be some charts to discuss there too. So I'm going to leave you the link for that one if you want to check out the Kazakh gold reserve. There's also a video that goes with that. Not done live, pre-recorded. I still do some pre-recorded videos and analysis, but I've been taking to the live streams because I do enjoy the questions in the comments and responding to those, which you can't do in a pre-recorded. Now, last night we started a nightly contest for a Smaulgld game changer eraser, and last night's question was won by what every man should have, and the question was, in what year did the United States confiscate silver, and for what was the stated purpose? And that year was 1934, and the answer was to make coins. It wasn't just to take the silver from the people, but actually to get silver from the people so they can make coins for the people. Totally different than the gold confiscation of 1933, where they actually took the gold coins themselves and pretty much any other gold that you would turn into them. Well, tonight's question, we're not going to have an ad tonight. We're just going to have a contest. Remember, this channel has no YouTube ads, no Google AdSense, no ads whatsoever. Not even a Smaulgld mug ad tonight. I guess that was one, but if you are interested in a Smaulgld mug, you can always go to the website or below this BitChute or YouTube and get yourself a Smaulgld mug. Also, on all of the YouTubes, I also include the reasons to buy and hoard mugs in case you've ever missed those. Now, here is the question for tonight. First person who can answer this question in the chat bar, not by email, will receive a Smaulgld Game Changer Eraser. All right. The question: in what year did the United States Mint sell the greatest number of American Gold Eagles total number of coins, including the 1/10, 1/4, 1/2, and 1 ounce coins, ending up with the largest amount of gold ever sold by the U.S. Mint? I want the year, and I'll give you the amount that were sold, but you have to tell me why you think. What's the commonly accepted reason why in that particular year the U.S. Mint sold a record amount of gold? That year, the U.S. Mint sold 2,055,500 ounces of gold. And that was 5,079,000 coins in all different sizes. I'll give you another hint. The year before, they sold 1.839 million ounces of gold, and that was 3.487 million coins. So what year was the year that the U.S. Mint sold the most amount of ounces of gold and the most number of American Gold Eagles? What year was it, and why did the Mint sell so many coins that particular year? All right, while we're waiting for an answer on that, let's get to the topic: what happened to gold mining production in the second quarter? Now, I've been hearing these stories about they're running out of gold, peak gold, game over, game changer, not enough gold, supply, central banks are buying gold hand over fist, Chinese are buying, everyone is buying. And the way, if you listen to these stories, demand is outstripping supply in a huge way. Well, it's not. According to today's World Gold Council, gold demand fell about 6% in the first half of the year, and they attributed that fall to a decline in ETFs. Also, gold demand was down, and it was down to the lowest amount since 2009. So gold demand is not skyrocketing. It's not outpacing supply. They're not running out of gold. And on the flip side, gold mining production. Now, we've done a few nightly shows on this where people again say, gold mining is unprofitable. They can't keep up. And we talked about how that's specific to South Africa. And we also talked about last night how South Africa was into overproduction during the period of time of the Bretton Woods Agreement, especially towards the end, where they had to produce a lot of gold to keep the coffers in the United States and other central banks filled, because gold was indeed money and currency back then, and the world economy and trade was expanding, and there wasn't enough gold or dollars. Well, South Africa has pretty much depleted and gotten all the low-hanging fruit, so that now, yes, gold mining in South Africa is unprofitable. I think some of the numbers they throw out there are $1,500, $1,800, $2,200 an ounce to pull gold out of a South African mine. However, we talked about this the other night as well. Overall, though, gold mining production at the largest major gold mining companies can be between 780 and up to about $1,000. So gold mining is profitable at the moment. And what's interesting about the gold production and the gold supply in the first half and the second quarter of 2018 is that it's up. And indeed, gold supply and mining production in the second quarter were the second highest ever. So there's a myth out there that gold mines are shutting down and they're not profitable and they can't make enough gold because central banks are buying hand over fist. And we've talked about central banks, and I'll go through them again tonight, and the World Gold Council points this out. central banks are not a big purchaser of the overall amount of gold. The central banks, as I mentioned, the only central bank that's buying anything significant is the Central Bank of Russia, and it's buying, excuse me, 224 tons last year. Now, 224 tons out of about 3,300 tons produced each year, that's not a significant amount. It's significant for Russia, but it's not in the grand scheme of things. And if we've mentioned, Russia is one of those major gold producers. They're the third largest gold producer. After Russia, it's slim pickings. The next largest central bank that's buying gold hand over fist is Kazakhstan. Now, I've been reporting on Kazakhstan for a few years now, and I like the idea that they're buying, and I announced, again, I didn't announce, but I reported today that they had bought gold now for the 69th straight month. They bought about 20 tons of gold so far this year. Last year, they bought a whopping total of 40. They're the second largest buyer of gold. And again, Kazakhstan is a mining, is a country that has now a significant mining operation of gold. They have gone from 20 tons of gold mined in 2008 up to 70 tons of gold mined last year. So the two banks that are buying, they're not buying hand over fist because central banks aren't buying. There's only really 3 or 4 of them that are buying, and the amounts that they're buying is not that significant. Turkey is the next one. They sold gold a couple of years ago. They're buying that back. So central banks added in Q2, according to the World Gold Council, 89 tons. That's down 7% from last year. But it's not that much anyway. So that's the central bank. So the central bank story isn't a big deal, but people will make you think that, oh, Russia knows what's coming, Kazakhstan, they're all buying gold. They're not all buying gold. Only 3 of them are buying gold. And they're buying, we're going to go through this tomorrow, why they're buying gold. So central banks are really not part of the equation. Now, investment is. The reason investment demand was down was mostly because of ETFs. There was a big withdrawal of the ETFs. However, gold demand in India was pretty much flat, a little bit down year over year, but Chinese demand was still strong. So do not talk about China, meaning the People's Bank of China. The People's Bank of China is not the Chinese entity that buys all this gold. They've got their 1,843 tons. For whatever reason they have it there, they have it there. It's the state-owned enterprises, it's the state-owned banks, it's the sovereign wealth funds of China that have gold, it's the people of China that have gold, and yes, indeed, they are the largest buyer now ahead of India. They pulled in nearly 70 tons of gold in the second quarter alone. So if you take China and India themselves, not the central banks, they could account for 2,000, 2,500 tons of gold. And the central banks in total might account for 300. So the story is not the central banks. The story has always been, for the last 10 years, what the countries of China and India are doing. They are the big drivers of gold demand, full stop. They are the drivers of investment demand. They are the drivers of jewelry demand. And again, while investment demand in the second quarter was 280 tons, jewelry demand was 510 tons. So again, jewelry outpacing investment demand, and the big buyers, Indian consumers and Chinese consumers. So, and what hurts the Chinese and Indians on buying gold is effectively price. Price goes down, they probably buy a little less, but then India throws in VAT and duties. And then also, there's the vagaries of style, whether the industry is making the right styles that the Chinese may want. Not everyone is a stacker. A lot of people who buy gold buy it for its aesthetic value. They buy it as a status symbol. So we see in the second quarter and in the first half that the gold demand was down overall about 4%, and the gold supply was up 3%. Now, the gold supply-demand dynamic doesn't necessarily drive the price, but it is important to follow. And what we see here is that the gold demand is not as strong as it was last year, and the supply of gold through mining and scrap is higher. Now, I would expect in the second half that that turns around. Why? Because the price is low. I would think that we're already seeing a pickup in demand at the U.S. Mint. We had the biggest month of the year for American gold buffaloes in June, even bigger than January. Now, remember, the U.S. Mint numbers, they're insignificant in the amount of, but they do reflect the consumer sentiment. I think the retail sentiment. So when gold sales are up, it is, I think now it's because of price. But also, what happens in India, and there's competing good and bad news there, Indian farmers buy gold. Like half of Indians don't have a bank account. They live in rural areas, and they save their money in rupee and gold, and oftentimes more so in gold than rupees. A lot of it's in jewelry. Now, the monsoon season, when it rains in India, then the crops are better. If they have a great monsoon season, they're going to have better crops, they're going to have more cash, they're going to buy more gold, especially if the price is low. If they got a so-so monsoon season and the price is high, they're going to buy less gold. Well, they have this year a so-so monsoon season, so the crops aren't going to be that good. The first half of gold imports into India has been okay. It's less than last year, not much less than last year, and last year was a decent year for gold demand. This year, it's silver is the story, which we've talked about. But the second half of the year, they're saying that Indians going to step up to boost farmers' income. I guess they're socialists. They're going to, I don't know if they're going to hand them money or give them loan waivers, or they're going to raise the price of the crops. But that's going to improve the fortunes of the Indian farmers, and that should. They say 2/3 of Indian gold demand comes from these regions, the rural areas where people buy jewelry. That's stackers, but they're in rural areas, don't have a bank account. They've got daughters they have to, they still have to provide a dowry. They still give gifts in gold. So anytime the Indians come into more money, whether it's the government giving it to them, whether it's because of the farms are improving, or whether the standard of living is getting better, you generally see an increase in gold demand. I think that's about it. The highlights of the, I'll put the links for the World Gold Council, but just always keep in mind, there's two things I like to always remember. When people say China and they cite People's Bank of China, that is not China's gold. No more than the Reserve Bank of India's 557 tons reflects all the gold in India. I don't know why people, they think of China as the People's Bank of China, and they say they're lying, they got more than that. Of course they have more than that. You only have to look at the amount that they mine every year. They've mined 7,000 tons in the last 15 years or so. They only have 1,843 on the People's Bank of China's balance sheet, so of course they have more gold in China. It's just not at the People's Bank of China. Just like there's 25,000 tons of gold in India, but only 557.7 tons listed on the Reserve Bank of India. No one accuses India of lying, but they always accuse China. There's like some type of story that China is doing something. China plays the long game, Sun Tzu. All this nonsense about China and gold. Completely missing the fact that China has a massive debt problem that we're not going to talk about tonight. So when you talk about a country's gold, there's a difference between how much gold goes into the country, to the people, to institutions, to state-owned banks, state-owned enterprises, and then how much gold the central bank has. So, for example, whatever the United States says it has in Fort Knox, that's all that means. It's what is owned by the U.S. Treasury at Fort Knox. And, of course, that's when everyone's, oh, they don't have any, they don't have any. They know that. They know that because they heard it 1,000 times on a YouTube channel. But let's say they have no gold at Fort Knox. Does that mean there's no gold in the United States? No. There's other places and institutions that have gold. All right. So that's about it on the gold demand. Let's see if we've got any questions or great comments like we had the other night. And let's see if anyone won the contest. I want to see if somebody won the contest. Let's go to our dashboard. All right. No, I can't. I'm missing some comments here. Oh, I got to pull up like this. I'm sorry, I missed the early comments. Pat had some comments and I can't see them now. It looks like the thing is stuck. Well, I'm going to have to blame YouTube for this. My first comment is, I love the gold buffalo, but the premium is always too high when I'm buying gold. Wish I had more of them. The gold buffalo has just about the same premium as the eagle, doesn't it? I'm not sure. Sean Saylor, Smaulgld, you really ripped on Peter Schiff today on Twitter. Gold derangement syndrome. I understand I have done the same to him a couple of times. I don't know it somehow. What Peter had said today was, let me find the tweet. Because it was an interesting comment, but it's almost like if you think of the world as gold, and 2 + 2 is gold, and that's just how you think. You don't. If you start from how can I come up with a story to involve gold, and how do I fix everything with gold, I think your analysis is going to be off. And I think that's what most channels do. They're always looking for a gold angle when maybe gold isn't the. Also, he's looking for the crush the dollar angle too, because that's the whole thing. Dollar collapse, end of dollar hegemony. So here's what he writes. Victory plan for China. 1, dump all U.S. treasuries. That gets people excited. Russia's dumping treasuries. China's dumping treasuries. I like your dumping treasuries, because that's like a dog whistle for dollar collapse. 2, use proceeds to buy gold. Of course. So China would buy gold hand over fist. 3, peg the yuan to gold rather than the dollar. 4, you can see the fantasy right here. 4, end all future dollar purchases. Results, dollar collapses, yuan soars, GDP explodes in China, implodes in US, China becomes world's largest economy, exclamation point. Now, my question is this what most Americans want, is a Chinese victory? And why is he advising China to do all this? And second of all, I don't think this is good advice. Dumping treasuries when they're worth $1.2, $1.3 trillion, you're not going to get the best price for them. Their economy runs on dollars. Using the proceeds to buy gold, well, what's that going to do? It's going to drive the price of gold higher. I'm not sure that's a good idea. And then peg the yuan to gold. Now the yuan is really strong. So now they can't export cheap goods. No problem. They just buy the stuff themselves and go off happily ever after. You can't do that in a day. You can't do that in a week. There's people that are relying on jobs right now. They're relying on income right now. There's banks that are relying on the state-owned enterprises that are already in default to pay them as soon as possible. If you were to do this, you'd have to do it over such a long period of time. That would be, it doesn't make any sense. End future dollar purchases. So in other words, don't hold any reserves. What are they going to hold the reserves in? They can just keep buying gold? Doesn't make a stitch of sense. But in any event, that was today, and I called that gold derangement syndrome because I do see a lot of gold and silver derangement syndromes where everything is tied to gold skyrocketing, silver skyrocketing, or whatever it is. But you know, I am having trouble here with the chat. The chat is going away, and all I have now. Yeah, you know, if somebody can do me this, if your chat is working, let me just see, live chat. I'm not getting them all. If you can cut and paste them, otherwise I can't, and send me an email at smaulgld@gmail. Otherwise, I'm only seeing three comments here. I'm not seeing the full list of the comments. Normally I could see them and I can scroll up and get to them. But all I see is Pad, the most recent one. He's saying on our range to 1170. Oh, I see. No, I only see the beginning ones now. I'm not seeing the later ones. He says, I would expect other central banks, this is Pad, to be adding gold at a faster rate than reporting. Why? Especially Western countries not reporting because it would show their hand. After all, they lie about everything. But now you're into pure speculation. Again, you're projecting what you want. Turn off top chat. I think I did that. I'm on live chat. Top chat's on some messages. I have live chat. And yeah, I only have the Pad comments, then one from Sean Saylor, and then database DNA. All right, let's just say I can finish up with Pad here. 2009 November because of market crash. Oh, that was your guess. Yeah, I don't have a winner yet on this answer. In what year did the United States sell the greatest number of American gold eagles? And I gave you the number. It was 5,789,000 of all sizes, 1/10, 1/4, 1/2, and 1 ounce, and it totaled 2,055,500 ounces. And I don't have the comments. So again, if somebody can send me, otherwise I'm going to sign off here, the comments. The way you would do it is you would just do a couple of screenshots, send it to me, and I can read them and respond to them. Otherwise, Sean Sailor says, I knew the answer to last night's question, but chat wouldn't work for me. Yeah, and chat's not working for me right now. Somebody may have already given me the answer, but the chat is not working here. Let me see what else I can do. Manage moderators, pop out chat. Let's see if that works. Nothing to see here. No, even the pop out. Well, let's top chat. Hold on. Live chat. Even with live chat, I can't get the full amount. Well, if somebody did answer and you want proof that you have the right answer, then you're going to have to email me screenshots of these answers. Otherwise, we're going to have to try again tomorrow night. That's live chat, and we're not getting anywhere. Central banks rigging the chat. Yes, that's what's happening right now. This message is too important for the elite to hear, so they're sabotaging my channel. And there's nothing. Yeah, Pat, chat's working fine. If you can, Pat, if yours is working fine, could you cut and paste from the top to the bottom of all the messages so far and email me at smaulgld.com, and then I can respond to them. But it's not working. I'm on live chat, and it's not. Sean guessed 2011. Nope, that is not the answer. Pat guessed 2009. I may just give away the answer. Oh, Pat is going to do it for me. So if you all just hang out just for a minute, I'll get the Pat's kind enough to send me the whole list of questions, and then I'll just leave them here. And it looks like they're coming. I have the most recent ones showing up, but not the ones before. Pat says, just came back from my normal produce market. For the last several months, there have been very few customers. No one has any money to buy food down here. That's strange. Yeah, I still think there's a mixed economy. I'm not sure that much has changed, but I do think that the tax cuts, they keep saying help the rich, but if people got a tax cut, there is a little money there. That doesn't mean anything's dramatically changed in terms of inflation. Doesn't mean there's better deals out there. You're still hearing people saying things are about the same. But let me see if Pat has sent me. Not yet. All right. I mean, you have to buy food. It's not like that's the last thing that you cut back on. Although the first thing you cut back on is eating out. The second thing you cut back on are things like steak and more expensive drinks. So like if you like your craft beer or your fine wine, you cut back on that for sure, and you buy the more generic beers. And of course you use coupons, and but that's always been the case. Okay, database DNA. What if Russia starts dumping mugs? Well, they're buying mugs hand over fist, and as I mentioned, there are mugs at the offices of JP Morgan and central banks, and that is all you need to know. So if you haven't bought a mug yet, and you're not impoverished yet, you might as well get your hands on a mug, and here is the link. Boom. All right, well, I'm not having much luck. Pat, are you getting that list for me? Is anyone getting that list for me? If not, the chat will not go. So now he's having problems with the chat. All right, I guess we probably best wrap this up because I missed basically all of the questions, all of your comments. Pat says, error, chat will not go. The Illuminati have hacked us. The elites are not losing control. Elites have dominated and infiltrated our chat. So we'll talk to you tomorrow night. And tomorrow night we're going to talk about Why central banks are buying gold? Mugs hidden in the Grand Canyon? Probably. You never know. I think JP Morgan's buying mugs. Lots of them. All right. Good night, everyone.